So you're still kind of feminist, but not
Yeah,
as
like
much.
I think the wage gap, like I think the average man still makes way more than the average woman, and I think that's why men should pay for the first date, because women have more consequences.
Erroneous.
A lot of these things, I feel like a lot of these things are applicable, and I think everyone, I mean, their experience and their feelings are valid depending on, you know.
Don't you think men are paid more because they choose, like, they tend to choose more STEM jobs?
Why do you think they
and
choose
also
more
not
STEM
only
jobs?
that, but
They
their ability to be able
enjoy
to work
more
hard.
Wait, what do you mean?
Definitely not.
Well, like it depends on the
Definitely.
culture. Like in
When
Asia, like all the women are in STEM, like in white collar jobs and like doctors and all of that, good at math. But in America, it's like, so when I moved to America, I learned algebra in 4th grade. I moved to America, people are in like still on multiplication, and all the women acted dumb because it was like a social norm, because that was cute.
No,
so
I
it
think
was
they
really
just
strange.
are.
No, they're like, oh my god, I'm so bad, and then it's popularized in pop culture.
Because
with
it's
like,
cute.
yeah, it's
In
like
America,
cute,
they
and I was like, what? And then I was
Right.
like bullied for being a nerd. But there's a lot of cultural differences. Like in Asia, there's a lot more like CEOs that are women and stuff, but like here there's not. So I would like to, for society to kind of like not discriminate against women who like,
But like, okay,
assuming they don't work as hard.
in a
or are-
capitalist market, if a company was really truly trying to maximize profits, which is what most companies do, and it's true that women just will accept less pay than men, then why wouldn't all of these companies hire exclusively women? Because then they could just pay 77 cents on the dollar and make huge.
Because men believe that women are less capable at producing good work when it comes to STEM. So like that's a problem.
what?
There's like these discrepancies between like
Yeah,
hiring
like,
practices and
No,
like the
'cause
companies.
I was in all these
versus-
coding classes, and all these guys are like, oh yeah, like guys helping you.
Well,
like,
I
even
can't
in my
talk about
job.
STEM specifically because I don't really know STEM, but when you think about it, anybody who's able to maximize and get to like the top like 1, 2, 3% of their profession to the point where they're making multiple 6 figures, because at that point when you're making 6 figures, you're already considered to be the 1% of American income earners, right? Or like the top 3%
No,
at
it's like
least.
10.
Top 3%. No, it's the top 3% actually. 100,000 per year makes you within the top 3% of income earners.
That's false.
No,
actually.
it's not. It's not actually.
We
It's
can
not.
search
The
it.
top-
No, look it up, because 100K in San Francisco is actually poverty per household.
Yeah, I know, but when you
Are we talking
consider
about
that with
America as a
when
whole,
you're
or-
talking about America as a whole, the
Okay.
top, when you make over 100K, that is considered the top 3%
I thought
of
it was like
income
10 to
earners.
15.
No,
Can we look it up?
and that is the disparity where women get that wrong, because when they talk about the man that they want, oh, I want a man who makes 6 figures to be this, to be that, oftentimes women think that that is a large majority of men. To be frank,
It
when
is in
you-
California.
when you calculate all those factors, it's less than 0.5%. It's usually less than 1% of men who actually make over 6 figures, who are at least like 6 foot tall, for example, who have a lot of the other characteristics that women are looking for, right? So women, honestly, people really get that messed up when it comes to income expectations, and especially with women who are able to maximize their income on platforms like OnlyFans. But I'm telling you, shit is rare. For the average man to make 6 figures, that is exceedingly rare.
What are some ways in which women don't have equal rights socially?
Or, okay, so there has been multitude of studies showing that when women or men have the same qualifications, if there is a woman name on the resume, they are less likely to get picked rather than like a male name.
Well, number one, I feel like that is number one with what's it called when
But
I forget the name of it, when they're like literally selecting women or literally selecting
affirmative action.
With affirmative
action is like a band-aid though. Like it
yeah,
doesn't-
but regardless, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to who can get the job done. When you look at it, right, and I've seen this from
Then
first-hand
affirmative
experience, a
action
woman
goes
who
against
walks into a job interview where the person tells them this is what you're gonna get paid, are probably gonna walk out of that interview and be like, okay, shit, that's what I'm gonna get paid. A man who walks into that interview, who's qualified, who knows his worth, when they tell him that figure, will say, no, I know what I am worth. And that is a personality characteristic. And at the end of the day, that all factors in to this wage gap disparity that we're talking about.
It's very social, yes.
Yeah.
And women are trained to be okay. Like if an employer asks you, like, what did you get paid at your last job? Women tend to tell the truth, while men tend to say that they got paid 20% more. But now the wage gap is slowly diminishing and closing. But right now it's still not there yet, but we're like on the way.
Actually, if you adjust, it's pretty much
Also, women
It's gone. It's gone.
That
It's
is
gone?
not
Also,
true.
when
That's
women
not
It's gone.
Look at
If
the
you
average
if you account for
median
all
income.
variables, if you adjust for
What do you
all
mean by
variables,
Taking time off for children, for example, when you account for the fact that women are far more like, what woman is willing to work 80 hours per week to be able to get into the position of other men? Men, that is naturally their proclivity. They are based on competition. How can I get ahead of the men next to me? Women don't naturally have that mindset unless they are an exceedingly rare type of woman.
I strongly disagree. But then on top of that, you can make the argument of like, oh, you know, who's pressured more to take care of children and to stay at home? It's always women.
That's why I want
It's
to stay
And
at
who's
home
But that's a
husband.
natural proclivity.
and
I
who's
want-
I
pressured
don't
more?
think you can make
husband.
that claim. I don't think it's a, if you look, okay, the argument that's a natural proclivity comes from like, okay, civilization post-agricultural revolution, which has been like the last 10,000 years. And that is even by itself like very tumultuous because we look at, oh, men gained supply or control of the food supply at that time. So you can argue that like when men have control of the food supply, that's how like environmental factors end up creating society. But for the past 100,000 years before that, when we were nomadic societies, things were a lot more egalitarian in nature, which makes sense. We hunted in groups. We took care of children in groups.
It was hunter-gatherers, though. There was women who were gathering and men who were hunting. Who
But
were
But
doing
doesn't
the
mean one
dangerous
is more
jobs.
valuable than the other.
No, if you look
No, but it's showing that they have different places, equal but separate. They serve different purposes within
the
society.
idea, okay, but here's the deal. The idea that's like, no, women only gathered and men only hunted, that's not true either. There was great overlap. We can search it right
Some
now.
overlap, but on the
Great
balance of
overlap.
probability, then why is that literally a thing where they said women were gatherers and men were hunters? Were they lying?
Well, I wanna
way back then?
argue-
What would
Well,
that
no,
be? What would their
history-
motivation be to lie
No,
about
because
it? That is what happened. It's
because
what was
because the
documented.
argument post 1800s when this was first brought up was this idea that women are too frail and too weak to hunt, so therefore they must have only been gatherers. But if we look at, let's say, like the recent like bone studies, basically, where we look, we examine the corpses and stuff. Hey, guess what? A lot more are women than we previously thought, and which makes sense because the way that we hunted wasn't through brute force and strength. It was through literally walking animals until they collapsed out of exhaustion and then reaping the meat out of
That's how
that.
they did it back in the day. I didn't.
Yeah,
But, I mean, sure.
But also
like-
modern society, because men aren't like just doing blue collar jobs. I would agree if like we're in a blue collar society, it's just farmers, it's just hunters, it's just construction workers. Like I would agree that yeah, men should do these jobs, but when it comes to like white collar jobs, like I think women are just as capable and intelligent and they
True,
can go
but
through-
again, work ethic
That's
comes
really
into it.
sexist of you to say that men should do the dangerous, dirty, difficult
I think
work.
men are on average bigger
But
muscle mass.
work ethic, would you say, like, can you name many women who you know in your friend group who are willing to work 80 hours per week on something? I could name several men who I know, who are in my circle who do that or who aspire to do that versus most women were exhausted
I mean, I know
after doing an
some,
average
and-
40-hour week. That's why most women are going to OnlyFans because they can't even work a fucking restaurant job. They can't even
Oh,
work
I
a
was-
40-hour per week job. So they go and they do OnlyFans, and yet we're here fighting about women's natural work ethic and proclivity to be able to achieve the same results
I mean,
as
you-
men.
you just
like they're
assume
not willing
that
to put in the work.
You're assuming that I only do like OnlyFans and
Well,
I
no, I know
quit
that you do
everything
other things
else.
as well because you stated it. I'm talking
Yeah.
about on the balance of probability for most women. They
I know
see
so
that.
many lazy men as well. Like, you know, the men, like, they're, if you look at the stats of the norm, like, there are way more men who are homeless, who are unemployed, and there are also way more men who are billionaires. Mm-hmm. And I think there's just a lot more men on average who, like, do everything, but it's not doesn't represent the whole. And same with like women. I think women more have like a normal curve where a lot of people work like maybe average 40 hours, but there are people who work more and there are people who work
And that's
less.
but we're talking on the balance of probability. We're not talking about the
Yeah, the
exception to the
probability
rule. What
of
we're
it
talking
is that
about
there are a
the
lot more
societal
men-
standards, which are, in turn relate to people's natural proclivities.